Welcome to the Root of Power podcast, where I teach you how to chase your joy, find alignment, and create a life and a business that you love, using actionable methods, interviews, and inspiring stories from people who know that true freedom is found within. I'm your host, your always hype woman and sometimes ass kicker, Amanda Chills, and I am so proud of you for choosing to step into your power. Come along, we've got dreams to build. Okay, my love, I have put everything that I offer for free on one page so that we are not doing more work than we have to, because why would we do that? Hashtag work smarter, not harder. So livemyhappyhealth.com/free. You are going to find everything I've created for not only leveling up in your personal life and building a life that you love, but leveling up in your business life and building a business that you love. Okay? livemyhappyhealth.com/free. Love you. Hello. Root of Power fam. I hope that you are having the most beautiful day or evening or night. The most beautiful day or night that so far life has been good for you. You have had sweet little surprises from the universe. You're getting little nudges from the universe, kind of taking you along this river and this journey. And you're growing and you're thriving and you're happy and you're spending time with people that you love and you're doing things that you love. And if you're not doing those yet, I hope that this episode is helpful for you, and I intend for it to be useful for you in some way. And I hope that those things come across your path and you start to build them soon. I am so grateful that you are here. It is so nice when people tell me that the podcast is helpful, not just because like that's the whole point of it, but because sometimes it's a little bit like speaking into the void, right? It's like we build these things, we hope that they go out and find the right people, and here you are. So if this has been at all useful for you, please consider leaving a 5-star review. And if this is your first time, then welcome. I'm so stoked that you're here, and I'm just excited that you're here. So hello. We are filming this. I typically film on Thursday mornings. Maybe you guys care about that. Maybe you don't, but I typically film on Thursday mornings. I will do a few at a time. So this is the first one of the morning. So we the freshest. So I have a thing that I do with clients, and I want to start with a story. So it has happened throughout my career, with therapy clients, with coaching clients, with whatever, that I sometimes get pushback, obviously, from clients, because change can be scary. Change can be hard. If it was easy, right? Like everyone would be doing it. But humans are kind of wired to not very much like change. So our body and our brain naturally resist change. So being open to change, being committed to it, is quite a courageous process. So kudos to anyone who's doing that, and especially to our clients. We're a little biased. We love them the most. But again, if you're here, like kudos to you. You're clearly on this journey. And so the human body and the mind is wired to enjoy things being the same, because same feels safe. This is often why you will find people in the same scenario, in the same relationship, in the same job, in the same town, that they're not necessarily happy in, and perhaps they're quite miserable in, but it feels safe because there's nothing new. And because there's nothing new, they don't have to change anything. So then when people start this process with us, we have to go through this process of like breaking down the mental gymnastics that people do to stay in a shitty situation. So I'll give you an example I have come across many times. Well, I'll give you two. So I have walked with multiple clients who are in imbalanced, abusive relationships, whose partners are cruel, who are downright garbage. I mean, at least garbage is useful. You can like recycle it. You can't really recycle a totally garbage, fucked up human being. I guess you could like throw them into a river and compact them, but that's illegal. So we won't be doing that. So I have walked with many clients through the journey of like leaving a toxic and or abusive relationship. And throughout that process, there's a lot of like string cutting, if you will. So imagine like every lie that you tell yourself becomes a string that ties you to that situation, to that toxic job, to that toxic person, to that toxic relationship, that toxic town, whatever, right? Every time you lie to yourself, oh, they're not that bad. Other places are worse. I think I kind of deserve this. I'll never find something better. They must be right. It is my fault. If I had explained better, if I had worked harder, if I had given in a little more, then it'll work out. So all of those things become lies that people tell themselves. Well, they're really such a good guy. Like he's so nice. He's really so sweet. And he's so nice. And he would just give you the shirt off of his back. Meanwhile, he's punching holes in the walls and throwing things at you and controlling your finances. And you're not allowed to have friends. Oh, and you're not allowed to work with coworkers of the opposite sex if you're straight. And they don't pay any bills. And they don't work, but you do. Right? So what happens when people come to us is they have spent so long lying to themselves, because if you're going to stay in a toxic situation, you have to, right? Like, oh no, my mom really was a good mom. Like she just kind of struggled a little bit. She just struggled a little, but she really was a good mom. Meanwhile, your mom was doing hella cocaine while you were growing up and had men in and out of the house who were not safe and put you in dangerous situations. But your mom was really so good. She just sometimes a little bit kind of struggled, but she was really such a good mom. One time she went to your softball game and she did that. Right? So you can see how like people make up these stories in order to keep them in this situation. Now, when you're a kid, you don't really have another choice, right? You can't be like, hey, mom, who's doing cocaine and dealing out of the house and having a bunch of dudes in and out, and it's very obviously unsafe, but she doesn't care. This ain't it. So I'm going to pack my bags as a 6-year-old and go figure life out. Like that's not something that a 6-year-old can do, right? So you learn to lie about your situation to yourself so that you have a place to live. Now that makes sense as a child. What happens is people don't then grow out of it. So because that becomes their pattern, that becomes the language that they speak, they continue lying to themselves about situation, and they find themselves in another shitty situation and another shitty situation. And pretty soon their whole life becomes shitty situations and shitty relationships and shitty jobs where they're mistreated, where things are not okay. And then they just say, oh, but it's such a good job. Like, yeah, there's like obviously it's totally illegal what we're doing. And they put us in situations that are super unsafe, but like, it's really such a good job. I get paid like $6 an hour. And it's basically slave labor, but like, they're just so nice. Like our managers just care about us so much. They're so nice. One time we had a pizza party and I don't get paid a living wage, but like that pizza party really was so great. It was just, I love pizza and they were so thoughtful. Right. So those are kind of ridiculous examples, but like, you know what I'm talking about. So what happens is those become strings that tie you to this toxic situation. And the more strings, AKA the more lies you tell yourself, the stronger that bond is, the stronger the hold is, right? If you have like a giant thick rope, it's much stronger than like a piece of string, okay? So one of my jobs as both a coach and a therapist is to start cutting those strings. Now, I am not someone who it's very easy to be a client for. I don't mean that like I'm an asshole. What I mean is that I keep and maintain a high, well, I guess those words mean the same thing. Anyway, radical honesty is one of my values, and it's one of the things that I teach most often because it is one of the fastest ways to disconnect people from toxic situations. So when people come to me, and I can't tell you how many clients I've had say, well, but he's really so sweet. Like he's so sweet. He's such a nice guy. And I'm like, he trapped you in the car with you and wouldn't let you get out and drove 100 miles an hour and threatened to crash into a tree. Nice people don't do that. They just don't. They just don't. For example, I've never done that, even though I was really mad at someone. Oh, but he's so sweet. He sexually assaulted you last week. Last week, he sexually assaulted you. That's not someone who's kind. Oh, they really love me. Oh, really? Because they're currently fucking 3 other women. That's not someone who loves you, right? So I do a lot of that kind of work. Well, this workplace really isn't that bad. Oh, you're working overtime and not getting paid for it, which, by the way, is illegal. So that's not true. Your workplace is not all sunshine and rainbows. It may have good aspects, right? Nothing is all bad or all good, but let's not lie to ourselves in the meantime. Oh, really? Like my mom really, really cared about me, and she really wasn't that bad. Maybe she cared about you to the extent that she could care about things, but she also used to lock you in a closet and beat you. So no, your mother is also not sunshine and roses. Like, we have to be honest about what's happening and what has happened so that we can break those ties, those emotional ties, those like literal energetic ties to these things, so we can then be free. So what that is called is radical honesty. It's just calling things what they are. Now, I tend to get a fair amount of pushback in the beginning because obviously if you've spent decades lying to yourself, if you have spent years lying to yourself, like, it can feel very harsh to have someone be like, no, actually that was a shitty situation and what they did was shitty and none of that was okay. It can also feel very relieving because finally, somebody is saying what you already know. You know it was bad. You know it wasn't okay. You've just been gaslit to the point where you're now gaslighting yourself, and that has no place in growth. There is no instance where gaslighting yourself or being gaslit is helpful. But what happens when you've been gaslit for so long by people telling you it's not a big deal? Of course I love you. I would never do these things. I'm doing these things because I love you. Is you start believing it because what do you want, right? You want to stay in this situation because what does your brain want? Your brain wants safety, AKA to not change. Not safety as in like you're literally physically safe. It doesn't want to change something. So you gaslight yourself, you lie to yourself in order to stay in this really shitty situation. And so one of the ways that we undo that is by radical honesty, calling things what they are, being honest about what happened. Now, that doesn't mean that like we decide this person is Satan and, oh my God, they're so horrible, and we go, tell the Wall Street Journal about them, although you have a right to do that. But what it does mean is that we were honest. So there are so many times where I say what they did was illegal. That's literally classified as abuse. What they're doing is abuse. That is sexual assault. That is rape. Because they spent so long downplaying. And until we're honest about what happens, there's too many strings. So we start cutting strings. It takes some time because that view, like, imagine how much lying to yourself about a situation for a long time protects you, right? It protects you from seeing this person, this situation that you've convinced yourself is not that bad, is helpful, is wonderful, whatever. That, we have to also understand that, like, when people start being radically honest, we also take away their protection that they've had for a while. So we want to do it in a compassionate way. Now, I tend to be more firm than some people. My style is much more clear than others. But that doesn't mean that I'm not compassionate, right? I'm not just meeting someone for the first time and being like, they're an abusive dickwad. Like, there's a process to this. And so radical honesty, what it does is it breaks all of those strings. It starts cutting those strings one by one so that eventually you have no strings tied to this person, this situation, this job, whatever. And so you can see it for what it is. Then you can make a decision about how you want to move forward. You can stay, you can leave, you can adjust, you can do any of those things. That's on you. What you choose to do with your life and the consequences of your choices are 100% on you. I can have an opinion, but like, who cares about my opinion? I'm not the person living with the consequences, right? So radical honesty allows you to make an actual informed decision. And what it does is it sets you free, because lies trap you. Lies become a prison. They become a filter through which you are trapped. And that's not okay, right? Like, you don't deserve to live in a prison. You certainly don't have to stay in situations that are not serving you when you have other options. But until you're honest about what's happening, you also can't explore other options. So radical honesty is one of those powerful tools that I use. And essentially, it's just calling things what they are, which takes a while to develop. Now, that doesn't mean that we're like judging people, although, we are human. So there's a fair amount of judging going on. But what I mean is, if someone is in your face screaming at you every afternoon because you don't have dinner ready at 5 o'clock, I'm not going to say, well, they have such a hard job and they're so stressed out. And like, I know it's kind of bad. Like, I get it, right? It's like kind of bad, but they're just so stressed, and they just have an anger problem. They just have an anger problem, and they don't really know how to talk about their feelings. But I know it's kind of sound bad, but they're just so stressed out from work, right? All of that is a lie. All of that is a lie. Maybe they're stressed out from work. Maybe they don't know how to talk about their emotions, but what they're actually doing is abuse. What they're actually doing is abuse. And we need to be honest about that, because otherwise we stay in prison. And we don't want you to live in prison. We want you to break free from prison. We want you to walk out of prison as a free human being. But in order to do that, we have to be honest about what's going on. So radical honesty at its core is literally just calling things what they are and removing the meaning that your brain is naturally going to associate with the event. So, for example, a few years ago, I cashed out some investments to buy the farm. And I was probably 23 at the time, 23, 24. I didn't really know I didn't even know that I had to file it on my taxes, honestly. I didn't know. I was like, I don't fucking know. Like, I just put the money towards the farm and it was what it was. And so I got a bill in the mail from the IRS. I was like, oh, hey, by the way, you owe like $3,000 because you didn't claim this on your taxes. And I was like, oh, damn. Like, I didn't even realize that I had to do that. Now, what happened was I pulled the money. I paid for the farm. I didn't file it on my taxes, and I got a bill from the IRS. And then I paid it, of course, because this bitch is not going to jail. This face, it just, I would become someone's bitch immediately. And that is like not the vibe, right? So that was what happened. That was the facts. I pulled the money. I didn't file it. I got a bill in the mail. Now, there are multiple meanings I can associate with that I'm an idiot, that I'm so stupid, that I'm a failure as a human being because I don't know tax law, and I'm just the world's worst human, and I'll never do anything right, and I'll never file my taxes right, and now taxes are scary, and if I fuck up, I'm going to jail, right? But radical honesty removes all of those meanings. It removes everything I'm making it mean. So it just became, I pulled the money, I didn't file it on my taxes, I got a bill, I paid the bill. It doesn't mean shit. It doesn't mean shit. It just means I didn't know, and now I know. So that hasn't happened again. Yay me for growth. So perhaps you have some things in your life where it's like X happened, then Y, then Z, and it means we're garbage, and we're dating someone. They're like, hey, this is not the vibe. They break up with us, and we're like, I'll be alone forever, and I'm a horrible person, and I did everything wrong, and everyone's gonna hate me. Like, whoa, let's back that up about 100 steps and just be honest about what happened. This thing happened. These things led to the ending of the relationship. They decided they wanted out, and now I'm single. Okay, great. That's what happened. Let's not make it mean anything. And for sure, let's not make it mean something that's unhelpful, right? Like, if I decide that I'm going to be alone forever, that nobody loves me, that I'm impossible, that no one will ever put up with me, whatever, like, that doesn't help me. But that's another episode, so we'll get into that one next. The point is, let's not make meanings that are unhelpful, and let's just remove meanings entirely. It's just an event that happened. We get to decide a meaning, so let's make it something that helps us and gives us power. So radical honesty becomes the scissors Caesars that cut the strings, keeping you in a shitty situation. Because if you are continually doing all sorts of mental gymnastics to lie to yourself about a situation, one, I don't recommend that, because if you have to lie 24/7 about a person or a job or a situation, that's its own red flag, baby. Like, that is a red flag. Okay. You should not have to do that. Like, you should not have to spend most of your day convincing yourself to stay in a situation. That's not okay. That's you having a bunch of strings and lying to yourself about what's going on. So if you find yourself doing that, I think radical honesty is going to help you a lot. And the more honest you are about everything, the more you can then explore options for whatever it is that you want to do. Like if I have, let's say I have like, I think maybe $20,000 in credit card debt, and I spend all of my time avoiding figuring out how much I owe and making a plan, I'm just going to make that problem worse. Being an ostrich and sticking your head in the sand, which by the way, they don't even do that, but like for the purposes of this analogy, we'll keep it, doesn't behoove you. It doesn't benefit you at all. So when you're radically honest and say, okay, like, yeah, it's scary, but shit, I'm going to sit down and figure out how much I owe. Oh, turns out I owe $16,000. Oh, that feels big, but okay, let's make a plan. Then you have a plan. Then you can explore your options. Then you can get shit done. But the more time you spend lying about something, the more it will perpetuate. So if you want something to continue, by all means, keep doing what you're doing. But I would be willing to bet that because you're listening to this episode, you don't want that to continue. So by all means, change something. Like, change your shit. Start being honest, objective about what happened. That is going to save your life. That's really all I got. So I can like continue giving you examples, but you guys are so intelligent and you are so smart and pretty. Even our few good men who listen. So you guys get the point, right? Be fully honest about everything in your life, and you will find that not only does it help you break free from the prison that your lies have created, but it becomes such a weight off because you no longer have to lie. You no longer feel like you have to lie, which is a level of freedom that I intend and wish for you. So when you start this, let me know. I'm very excited to hear how it turns out for you, even though I already know it's going to feel so freeing and like such a weight off. And you're going to find that you have so many more options, because if we're not honest about a situation, we can't appropriately problem solve. So this is one of the first steps to problem solving and changing things. And go forth and be honest. Proud of you.